Chapter 6. I know that I know nothing. Having officially learned how to read and write, Lith practiced it every day, while his family considered him a genius. He knew better. Needing to practice hard to memorize just 21 letters and 10 numbers. Lith did not feel much brilliant, striking the iron while it was still hot. He asked for Raz to carve him a wooden ruler, 50 centimeters, 19 7 inches, long and 3 centimeters, 1 2 inches, both high and thick. On its front rays, engraved the entire alphabet. On its back, the numbers. It was Lith's clutch during his homework, a tool necessary for him to be free of practicing any time without bothering his parents. Raz was still on cloud 9, so he didn't make any question about the oddly big sizes Lith had requested. He could have easily made it much thinner and shorter, making it easier to carry around. But Lith refused the proposal, begging his father to fulfill his wish. Lith had not missed Orpal's hostile glare every time someone called him a genius. He had to be sure that the rules would not be easy to break, nor go missing by accident. It was also the perfect pretext to always carry around something he could practice spirit magic on. When the weather finally cleared up, Alina decided that it was the perfect moment for Tista to be checked up by Nana, with all the cold and wind during those last days. No matter how much effort Raz and Orpal put in the house's maintenance, it had still been kinda drafty. Tista had been coughing enough for Alina to be seriously worried about her. She took the meal cart and brought Tista and Lith to the village of Lutia. The bad weather had lasted too long, and the accumulated farm work needed everyone's help to be finished before another frost wave arrived. She had to bring Lith along. He was too small to be left home alone. After stuffing them with the warmer clothes they had, the trip began. Lith was really happy. It was the first time for him seeing the world outside the farm's bounds. There was much he could learn from such an experience. On the road, they were bothered more than once by stray graths. They were wasp-like insects with a venomous sting at the end of their abdomen. Compared to Earth's wasps, they were much hairier and blue instead of yellow. Why, in the Great Mother's name, are they still around? Lina complained. They are supposed to be asleep during winter. One grath was particularly stubborn, and despite all their shooing, it kept going back until it got too close to Tista for comfort. Lith slammed his hands hard, missing it entirely. He was still as nimble as a brick, but his spirit magic wasn't. It had already reached an area of effect of 10 meters, 8 feet around him, so the grath was squashed effortlessly. Lith showed the prey with pride. "Don't worry, big sister. I'll always protect you." After hugging him, Tista was really curious about the dead insect. But Alina was still worried by the venom. So, after throwing it away, they resumed their trip. When they were in sight of Lutia, much of Lith's doubts got cleared up. It wasn't just his family. The whole village resembled closely one of those early Middle Ages drawings he had seen in history books. There was no sign of any complex technology. Even a windmill or a watermill would have been considered a marvel of science. When Lith asked Alina about the village, she explained that only artisans, scholars and merchants lived there. The rest of the population lived in their own farms, tending the fields and raising livestock. Lutia consisted in a few dozens of 1 or 2 stories high wooden houses well spaced between them. Not even one was made out of stone or bricks. There was also no road pavement of any sort. The space between the houses was just like the road to the village, bare earth and mud. From the signs hanged outside the buildings, Lith could spot a blacksmith, a tavern and a tailor shop. The bakery didn't need any sign or advertisement. The delicious smell that came out its chimney was enough to make every passerby's mouth watery. Lith's hunger hit him so hard that he already knew what he would have dreamed about that night. When they arrived at Nana's house, Lith was surprised noticing it was bigger than their own. Yet Alina had told him more than once that Nana lived alone. In his eyes, it meant that either she was from a rich family, more likely that healing was a lucrative business. Lith decided that he had to master light magic as soon as possible. The door was open, and once inside, Lith recognized the familiar feeling of a doctor's waiting room. The door led to a single huge room that smelled of medicinal herbs and incense. On the left end of the room, there was a door, probably leading to Nana's living quarter. On the right there was a huge wide curtain, behind which Nana was visiting and treating her patients. The rest of the space was filled with benches and chairs. Many of them were already taken. Many families had decided to make use of the good weather and get a checkup. Alina removed all of the extra clothing from her children before instructing them to be quiet and don't disturb others. The waiting room was filled with bored mothers. And soon Elena was one of them. She joined the conversation, sharing her experiences and advice. Lith could now wander around, undisturbed. The women were too busy keeping their children under control to take notice of his existence. The room was bare and uninteresting, but once he got close to the curtain, he stumbled upon a treasure. He had found a small open cabinet filled with books about magic. Maybe in this world is the equivalent of a doctor hanging his degrees and masters. He thought. Many of the titles were specific about an element or its application, but one book caught his eye. It had the basics of magic written on the cover. After checking that no one was paying him attention, he grabbed it and started to read. I'm only 3 years old. I can afford a better, to ask forgiveness than permission attitude. Lith then moved to a corner, giving his back to the curtain and hoping to go unnoticed as long as possible. It was clearly a book for beginners, so he skipped the introduction and went straight for the element's description. Lith discovered that water magic was not just about conjuring and manipulating water. It also allowed the user to lower anything's temperature. Any magic apprentice was supposed to be able to generate ice. It could be used for both offense and defense. Air magic too had an ability that he had never taken into consideration. Air magic, highest peak was weather control, but even at the basic level, a mage could generate lightning. Fire and earth were just plain and simple as he had pictured them all. So he moved to the last 2 elements. While reading, it became clear to him that because of magic, whoever had written the book had no idea what anatomy was. The book would speak about the importance of keeping a wound clean, but there were no words like disinfection or sepsis, so he barely found unknown medical terms. Lith remained dumbfounded upon discovering that light and darkness were explained together instead of in separate chapters. According to the book, both elements were the bread and butter of any healer. Darkness magic could be used as a weapon, but it was not explained in detail. The author was very clear in stressing the fact that he was not a fighter, and that beginners should never bite more than they could chew. Then he proceeded to explain that darkness magic wasn't either good or bad, just an element like the others. It was an invaluable tool for a healer, since it allowed them to clean wounds, tools, or even to fumigate houses from rats and insects to avoid the spreading of diseases. Also, it was the only way of getting rid of parasites that had grown inside a patient. Light magic would allow the healer to detect their presence, but could do no harm to them. Light and darkness worked best when used together. Light magic's specialty was the ability to perceive life forces and scan them for anomalies. It also allowed to correct such anomalies and to guarantee an instant recovery from most diseases. Restoring broken bones was more difficult, so it was explained in another chapter. Lith felt incredibly ignorant and stupid. He could have discovered most of those elemental properties on his own if he hadn't been blinded by his narrow-minded superstition. How could I have been so idiotic? I have lived here more than 3 years, and I am still thinking like this is a video game, with fixed rules and levels. Darkness is evil, and light is holy, or something. No, this is science. Damn it. The same one I studied all my life. If fire magic is converting mana into heat, then water magic is nothing but converting mana into cold, condensing the water in the atmosphere and turning it into the liquid state. It's all so obvious. It's like the damned Columbus's egg. He thought. He was about to turn the page and learn about healing broken bones when a firm hand squeezed his shoulder, locking him into place. That's not a toy, young man. I really hope that you have not damaged it. Otherwise, your family will have to pay for it dearly. Chapter 7, Learning a Trade. Lith had been so engrossed reading to forget where he was, throwing caution to the wind. When Nana caught him red-handed, he was startled enough to yelp. I thought I knew every single rascal, but I failed to recognize this one. What's your name, kid? Lith. What's yours? He replied while making puppy eyes. Nana was now more curious than angry. Lith? Do you mean Alina's little imp? No wonder your face is new to me. You were just a newborn the last time I saw you. Nana's presence had made the chatter stop. Some women wanted to ask her how long they had to wait for their turn. Others were just curious. Elena jumped out of her chair and apologized on Lith's behalf. There's no need to apologize, Elena, Nana said. No harm, no foul. The little imp has not damaged the book while playing with it. Yes, Mom, there is no need to apologize. Lith hated it when someone spoke about him like he wasn't there. And I was not playing with it. I was just reading. Reading. Young man, how old are you? 3 years and something? If this is a joke, it's not funny. I never expected one of Alina's children to be such a liar. He's not lying. During the last storm, Lith was bored, so he asked his father to teach him how to read, write, and count. Here is proof. Alina handed Nana the wooden ruler. Alina's rebuttal had caught her by surprise. Nana realized to have struck a nerve. After studying the ruler, Nana had to admit that it was a clever learning tool. Tell your husband that this thing is really a good idea. He could sell it to teach a whole. It never hurts to have extra money. Alina wouldn't let her change the subject, not until she apologized for calling her son a liar. Raz didn't invent it. Lith did, so he could study alone without bothering anyone. Nana was shaken by all those sudden revelations. Her pride wanted to avoid apologizing, but insinuating that Alina too was lying in front of all those people would have hurt the reputation of her family. So, young man, how much is 7 times 6? 42. Nana took the book from Lith's hands, and after opening a random page, she gave it back. What is written there? Start from the top of the page. Lith suppressed a smirk. The first thing to understand while studying magic is that it's just a tool. Anyone can use it, but only a few people can actually employ it properly. Fact. Okay, that's enough. I owe you an apology, Lith. Yet she said it while looking at Alina. Seems your son is indeed blessed by the light, dear. The room was once again resounding with chatter, but this time they were all discussing the same topic. What does Nana mean with blessed by the light? Isn't that just a fairy tale? I wish my son was that smart. Just sending him to school every morning is a war of attrition. Not to mention getting some actual results. Those were the most common comments. Lith kept hitting the iron while it was still hot. Can I? Suddenly he realized that he ignored the word. Borrow. Take it with me for some time. I will return it as it is. Bye, promise. And what would you do with it? Can you already use magic? Nana's reply would have normally been quite different, but she had enough surprises for one day and could not afford any more sarcasm or skepticism. Yes, I can. Lith replied before realizing his mistake. I'm an idiot. I just blew my cover. Years of careful planning ruined by this big mouth of mine. Bah, he thought. Really? And what can you do? Yes, Lith, what can you do? Alina rebuked. Her right foot was furiously tapping the floor in annoyance. Lith knew he was in trouble. I can do wind and water core magic, he said with a low, apologetic tone while staring at his own shoes. Sorry, Mum. I know you prohibited me to learn magic, but everyone else in the house always uses it, and I was so bored. The chattering increased in volume. Alina was really angry, but she could not scold him in public. Not when they were staring at them with admiration. And Nana seems really impressed. Maybe this is a turning point in Lith's life. If she takes him as her apprentice, we could have a healer in our family. I can't ruin this opportunity, she thought. Alina kept silent and wondered about his son's future. Would you please show me? Nana asked, smiling for the first time. In for a penny, in for a pound. Here goes everything. Lith thought. Brezza! Lith twirled his middle and index finger 2 times, creating as many tiny whirlwinds that he used to quickly sweep the room. He pretended to lose control from time to time. His goal was to impress, not to brag or scare people out of their wits. Oh, Pa. Pie! Ah! Nana laughed in admiration. She could see more and more of her in the little imp. Nana too had been a precocious brat. When she was his age, her talent was better, but Lith was still a sight to behold. Usually men were less talented for magic, since women with their prerogative to give birth were naturally more in tune with the life force of the planet. Some called that world energy, others simply called it mana. Also, country boys were usually blockheads. They were more inclined to work hard in the fields or in the military, rather than spend years on books. Now I want you to do a thing for me. You said that you can conjure water, right? Lith nodded in response. Now call upon water. It does not matter how little. You have to not let it fall, though. You must make it float, like this. A perfect sphere of water the size of a fist appeared 1/2 meter from Nana's open hand. Lith could not comprehend the reason for such a specific request, but he complied. Joran! He conjured less than a glass worth of water, keeping its form irregular and unstable. Lith could not afford any more mistakes. His focus peaked, trying to make his lack of control convincing. The water floated for 3 seconds before falling off. But instead of hitting the floor, it started floating again, becoming another perfect sphere, orbiting around Nana's spell like the moon does around Earth. Lith was flabbergasted. Not by Nana's control on the mana flow, he was already able of doing the same, if not better. He could not avert his eyes from the scene in front of him. Both spheres of water were constantly spinning on themselves, reflecting their surroundings over their surface. They would capture the light from the sun and turn it into sparkles of rainbow. Lith had always seen magic like a force to be reckoned with, a great tool to build his future with. But he never thought of it as beautiful. For the first time in over 3 years, he was not pretending. He was really amazed, staring at the dancing lights, while the memories of his old life flooded his mind. He suddenly remembered all the hours spent as a kid, hiding in the planetarium, together with his little brother Carl. They would dream of becoming astronauts, to run away to the stars, where no one would ever hurt them again. And just like that, his grief returned stronger than ever, fighting the joy out. The pain for Carl's loss overwhelmed him. Tears started to stream from his eyes. "Lith, are you all right?" Alina's voice woke him up from his stupor, realizing how weak he had allowed himself to be. Lith felt deeply disgusted. Water is just water. There's no need to get soft over a measly light show. Soldier up and follow the plan. Lith steeled himself and sealed all the feelings that he deemed useless. "I'm done getting hurt," he thought. "Yes, Mommy, I am all right. I was just moved from the old lady's magic. My name is Neria, Lith, but everyone calls me Nana." "Why Nana?" Nana was usually a term of endearment used for the family's grandmother. "You see, when I was still a young maiden, everyone called me by my name. But then time passed, and I helped so many children come into this world that they started to call me Mama. After even more time passed, those children had children of their own, and they started to call me Nana." She ruffled Lith's hair. "I have a proposal for you. Now you are too little, but when you become 6 years old, instead of going to school together with those blockheads, you could come here instead. You could read those books as much as you want. And maybe you could learn a trade. Mine." Lith tilted his head, playing dumb. "I don't know. You don't seem nice. I would like the books, though," he replied while hiding behind his mother, only half his face visible behind her legs. Alina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her dream had come true, but Lith didn't understand what he was turning down. "Please, excuse him, Nana. He is just 3 years old. He has no idea what he is saying. He doesn't even know the importance of apprenticeship." 3 years old, Nana repeated. "It's almost too good to be true, but you are right. If he had to choose between gold and toys, he would probably pick the latter. We'll have this conversation again 3 years from now." She knelt down, looking Lith straight in the eyes. "If you don't become as dumb as all the other boys in this village, I'll take you as my apprentice. If you will still be interested in magic and books, of course." Lith nodded, grabbing his mother's gown, looking for her protection. His weak and scared appearance hid his inner rage. 3 years? I might as well starve to death by then, and all because of you, greedy hag. Lith thought. He was so sick of being hungry, he wanted to bite her out of frustration. "Calm down, Derek, and remember all of your lessons. Suck it up and grow stronger, because only strength will make you free. Only power will keep your family safe." Chapter 8, Learning a Trade. Again. Nana's work ethic didn't allow for favoritism of any kind. Lith may have been his future apprentice, but Tista had to wait for her turn like everyone else. Lith hadn't been so happy about being stuck in a queue since his student days in college, when he would use every single second to review his weakest subjects. So much to read and so little time. Better to cram light and dark magic, since they are the only elements outside physics as I know it. In the best case scenario, it will take years to get my hands on a book again, and there is only so much I can learn as self-taught, he thought. When it was their turn, he studied carefully how the healer performed the light magic, Vinia Rad 2. It was the same life force detecting spell she had used on him 3 years ago. But this time he had a better understanding of magic and a way better standpoint, being next to Nana. Lith could appreciate every gesture and hand movement. Nana used to amplify the spell's effectiveness. The light enveloped Tista's body, quickly turning grey around her chest, clearly outlining the shape of her lungs. "I have good news, and I have bad news. The good news is that Tista's condition is the same as always. There is no sign of degeneration this time. The bad news is that it doesn't seem to be improving either. I'm afraid that she will remain like this forever. The more she grows, the lesser the chances that her body will be able to somehow fix itself. The air in the room turned heavy. A lifetime of illness was barely better than no life at all. Lith was so shocked that he completely forgot about the books. The whole world meant nothing to him if he could not share it with the only 3 people he loved and trusted. They came out of Nana's house in low spirits and returned home in silence. Once arrived, Alina shared the bad news and searched for Ra's arms before starting to cry. One by one, the whole family burst into tears, hugging each other in search of comfort. Lith allowed himself to cry, cursing the cruel fate that had befallen his sister. What good is magic if I keep being helpless? Why do I keep reincarnating? Simply to replace one living hell with another. Is this just bad luck, or is it my fault? Could it be that in some previous life I committed such an atrocious act that now all those who I love are cursed? Could this be my punishment? He thought. During the following days, Lith kept second-guessing every life choice he made. Before accepting the fact that bad things happen, Tista was already ill when he had resurrected for the 2nd time. It couldn't be his fault. Having been accepted as Nana's apprentice, he could now openly practice magic. Soon he proved to be capable of cleaning the whole house by himself, relieving his mother and sisters from all their chores. Thanks to darkness magic, cleaning dishes and cauldrons became a matter of minutes. Nothing organic, food residue or grease could escape being turned into dust by a single spark of dark energy. He also made countless experiments with light magic, in search of a cure for Tista. Yet all he managed to achieve was to keep her symptoms at bay. Tista now needed much fewer treatments from Nana, but she was still a prisoner in her own body. This caused Orpal to hate him more and more. Show off. How I am supposed to enjoy my life with him constantly breathing on my neck. Not only does Leech share the housework with Mom, but he also spends a lot of time with Tista, Orpal thought. Mom and Dad always praised him for his so-called talent and intelligence. Now they never shut up about Leech, saving the family a lot of money by tending Tista's condition on his own. No one gives a damn about me wasting my time and sweat doing all the farm work. Gods, why did you let him live? Why didn't you give me any talent? Oblivious of his brother's feelings, Lith was not coping much better. His magic power and comprehension of mana kept growing, but it could not erase the perpetual taste of failure that accompanied him. In the following year, he could not feel any joy regarding magic. Every discovery was useless, all of his power meaningless. And so, he was finally 4 years old. The period between 4 and 6 years in Lutia was called the Golden Age. Children that age were big enough to have some freedom and too little to be of any help in the daily activities. They would be allowed to play all day without a care in the world. It was the perfect time to make friends and grow closer to one's own neighbors and deepen the ties between the families. On the day of his 4th birthday, after Lith finished his chores, Raina introduced him to all their neighbors before returning home. He was supposed to socialize and play, but Lith had other plans. There was no amount of failures or grief that could make him forget for long the hunger that consumed him ever since he was barely 5 months old. While Ajay's farm was on the western edge of Lutia's farmlands, a little less than a kilometer, 0.62 miles of distance from the great woods known as Traun. Despite its pretentious name, it wasn't a particularly dangerous place. The people who lived in the nearby villages depended on the forest as their primary source of timber for their everyday life. Traun was also abundant in wildlife, so those bold and lucky enough would go hunting all year round, searching for precious meat, warm fur, or both. It was impossible to meet monsters in the forest unless one went several kilometers deep. Since there was no need for exploring the woods in detail, the inner areas were still uncharted territory. There was a reason Lith had never practiced martial arts in the New World. Not even the footwork. The constant practice of magic required a lot of energy, and his household lacked the necessary resources for his training. Lith was already skinnier than all of his siblings. Any more exertion and he would turn into a pile of bones. He needed food. But being a city boy, he knew nothing about butchering. He needed a teacher, and that was why he was headed for the house of Celia Fastaro, the only hunter among their neighbors. The problem is that I have no idea how to get her to help me. I'm still too little for an apprenticeship, and even if I wasn't, it's unlikely she had not heard about Nana's offer. She has nothing to gain, helping me. I can only hope that she is a kind and benevolent woman, he thought. Celia's house was a single-story wooden house, much smaller than Lith's, about 60 square meters large. There was no hen house or barn, except for the space in near proximity of the house. The fields were uncultivated, full of weeds, tall grass, and whatever the wind had planted over time. She clearly has no interest in farming and stock breeding, and that's good news. That means her business is good enough. I wonder what's in the shed near the house. It's almost as big as the house itself, he thought. Lith knocked. His innards were tied in a knot from the nervousness. The door opened almost immediately. You again? Are you lost or something? Celia was a woman in her mid-20s, 1.7 meters tall. Her skin was tanned from the years-long exposure to the sun. Her black hair was kept short with a haircut identical to Earth's military standards. She could have been considered very cute. But her small bosom, coupled with her sharp eyes and rough attitude, made her manlier than most farmers. She wore a leather hunting jacket over a green shirt, green cargo pants, and brown hunting boots with a soft outer sole to limit the noise made while moving. "Hi, Miss Fasterow. I need a favor. Could you please teach me how to skin and gut animals?" Celia raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I am hungry. Not having any leverage on her, Lith had decided that truth was the best policy. I have been hungry long enough to forget how being full feels. I know I can hunt, but I also know that without proper handling, meat goes bad and is inedible. No, you got me wrong. I mean, why should I help you? What's in for me? Now she was knitting her eyebrows. What do you want? Lith asked while bottling up the urge to kill her slowly and painfully. He was hungry enough to see her as a quarry. Honestly, I don't believe a runt that barely reaches my belt can hunt anything. Not even a rat. And since teaching is a waste of time, it demands compensation. She scratched her chin, searching for a deal bad enough to drive the pest away. She had never wanted a child of her own, let alone being forced to deal with someone else's. If you want to learn from me, first you must bring here some game. If you mess up while playing butcher, you'll ruin my merchandise, wasting both my goods and time. So here is my deal. Whatever you bring me, I'll teach you how to skin and gut it. But half of it is mine for the trouble. Take it or leave it. So much for the kind and benevolent woman. That's daylight robbery, Lith thought. I'll take it. How long will you stay home? He replied. I'll be here all day. I have a lot of work to do. Why? Because when I get back with my prey, I'll need your help. Don't forget our deal. Lith turned around, moving toward the woods, seeing the little runt act all tough despite not having a bow, traps, or even just a bag for the game. Celia could not help but laugh out loud, at least until the door slammed on her face, sending her butt first onto the floor. After getting up, she went to the nearest window. Lith was still in the same spot, but his face was turned toward her door. His eyes glowed brightly in the dim light of the dawn. After getting at the edge of the woods, he activated the light spell, Life Vision. It was one of the many he had created after a year of practice. By infusing his eyes with light magic, Lith was able to see living beings as colored, while the rest of the world was turned into shades of gray. The stronger the life force, the bigger and brighter the light they emitted. This way, he could easily spot animals, even if they were hiding underground, well, or inside a tree. Lith didn't need to hunt something big. As long as it was meat, it was the perfect prey. Most of the animals would run away as soon he came too close, but not all of them. Birds and squirrels perched on tree branches felt safe. Unluckily for them, Lith's spirit magic had reached a range of over 20 meters, 21.9 yards. They were all within his reach. He only needed to extend his open hand towards the quarry, then squeeze and turn his hand to break their necks. And in less than 20 minutes he had killed 2 odd feathered birds and 2 squirrels. I could catch more, but I want to pay that harpy as little as possible, Lith thought. While returning to the huntress's house, his greed was fiercely debating with his rage. Damn it! I wish I could just ask my father. Our farm has a hen house. We eat chicken. So, he must know how to butcher it. But if I do that, then I will be forced to share my quarry in equal parts. And if there is something that I hate more than being robbed by that harpy, is the idea of Orpal and Tryon having the same amount of meat as me, or worse. Being older, they could receive even more. I hunted this game. This meat is mine. Mine. They will only be allowed to eat my scraps when and if I want so. When Lith arrived at Celia's door, he had calmed down and managed to hide his rage behind his business face. He took a few deep breaths before knocking again. When Celia saw him, She was about to mock him and call him a quitter for giving up in less than an hour. But then Lith showed her his game, making her whole, never underestimate how hard a hunter's job is, speech die in her throat. Chapter 9. Learning a trade again. 2. How did you do that? Celia asked, still recovering from the surprise. Magic. I am blessed by the light. Didn't you hear the news? Lith said. Celia started rummaging through her brain until the kid's answer made sense. Oh, I get it now. You are the magic kid that's on everybody's mouth in Lutia. That explains a lot, including your shitty attitude. Excuse me? You found a scrawny kid on your door asking for help. Then, you forced him into accepting a rip-off deal, even laughing at his efforts. And I am the one with a shitty attitude. Lith was now so angry that even the idea of sharing his prey didn't seem so bad anymore. Celia laughed out loud. Kid, you really are funny in the head. First, when you go asking a complete stranger for help, the best you can hope for is to be sent away with a polite kick in the butt. If I had to comply with every madman's request, I would be broke in a jiffy. Second, you had the guts to slam the door in my face and then come back like nothing happened. That's a shitty attitude. Seeing things from her point of view, Lith could only agree. For the last 4 years, he had been secluded, only interacting with his family members. He had become too used to guessing yes for an answer, forgetting the basic social rules and even common sense. His hunger didn't help either. It made him single-minded and prone to anger. Lith realized that Celia was right, and what he had done that morning was just a temper tantrum. I'm really sorry. Ha! He said earnestly, looking her in the eyes. I have no excuses for my behavior. I would understand if you wanted to call off our deal. Celia started laughing even harder. Hold your horses. Kid, I said that you are crazy and rude. But I like that, as you so kindly pointed out. I'm a bit of jerk myself. Dog doesn't eat dog. Our deal is still valid. She handed him a small knife with a wooden handle. Rule number 1, bleed out the game as soon as possible. If the blood starts clotting, the meat is ruined. Make a deep incision in the neck and then hang them upside down to make the blood drain out. She pointed him to a clothesline. If you don't need the fur, just cut off the head. It makes things faster. Lith put down the knife and conjured enough water to coat his whole hand. Then, he froze it and turned it into a razor-sharp blade. Cutting off the birds' heads, he used the knife only for the squirrels. Celia whistled in approval. Nice trick. You don't shy away from blood, do you? As I have told you before, I am hungry. Too hungry to care about big round eyes or warm fur. I only see them as food. That's the right attitude for a hunter. Celia gave him thumbs up. She took the draining game and hung them for him. Thinking that the clothesline was too high for Lith to reach, Lith didn't feel the need to correct her. Since we are building a master-apprentice relationship and all that stuff, do you mind telling me why you came to me instead of asking your parents to teach you? I don't know your family, but this is something any farmer knows how to do. It would be too expensive to have someone else butcher your livestock. Indeed, Lith said, pondering how to answer. He looked her straight in the eyes before asking. Just between us. Master-apprentice, secret, and all that stuff. Celia nodded, surprised to receive an actual answer instead of a cranky remark. As far as I can remember, my brothers and I never had a good relationship. Things are pretty bad, especially with my older brother. Lith decided that he needed to take that load off his chest. Talking to a stranger was the best way to relieve his stress and ruin Orpal's reputation. Honesty was, indeed, the best policy. I don't know if it's because of my magic, but I've always eaten a lot. That wouldn't be a big deal if I didn't have 4 siblings, one of which has a congenital condition. Her treatment cost quite a lot, and it's barely enough to keep her alive. Thank the gods, I'm an only child. But what does that have to do with your older brother? Lith pretended to not have heard her. This means that despite my parents' hard work, we don't have much food on the table. Lith pointed at his thin arm, to make her feel guilty. And my brother is a growing boy too, so he would like to eat much more chow than he actually gets. From time to time, especially during winter, he has fits of rage, where he would accuse me of everything that goes wrong with his life. He often said things like, "Why the heck did you have so many children if you can't feed them properly? Why does Lith receive almost as much food as me?" He does nothing while I work my ass in the fields all year round. He is not my brother. He is a leech that is sucking my life away. I wish you died that cursed day. Lith did his best Orpel impression. Are you making this up to make me feel guilty, kid? Because that's sick. Celia was knitting her eyebrows, doubting that someone could say such things to his little brother. Lith shook his head, sighing. I wish. Did your father give him a good beating? Maybe that could help him come to his senses. Lith shook his head again. No. This started when I was very little, and even after talking proved to be useless and my father resorted to spanking. It only made things worse, to the point that I'm forced to sleep in my sister's room. Too soon. Celia bit her lips, to avoid making a sex joke. Too soon for what? Nothing. Please continue. That was until a year ago. Once I started practicing magic, I soon became skilled enough to do almost all the household chores by myself. Sometimes I help with the livestock too. I even managed to keep my sister's condition under control. Lith took a deep breath before finding the strength to add, most of the time. Then everything should be good now. Right? Wrong. The house needs repairs. And so does the barn, and most of the farm tools. If you take into account all the random problems that happens from time to time, and take priority, I don't see our situation getting better anytime soon, and neither does my brother. Now he can't put the blame on me anymore. So the last time he took it out on my ill sister, saying things that I refused to repeat out loud. Lith spat on the ground to get rid of the dirty taste the memory gave him. To the point of saying that it would be better for her to. Lith pointed at the hung game. To put her down like an animal. Kid, we may be jerks, but your brother is a lunatic. Lith gritted his teeth, remembering Orpel's exact words. It would be much better for her. For all of us. She can't run. She can't work. Tista will never be able to make friends, fall in love, or have children of her own. She's bound to be a burden for her family, and what will happen when you guys are no more? Who will take care of her? Raina? Or maybe the little leech wonder? Lith could still vividly remember his mother crying from those cruel words. Raina and Tista running into her arms. Raz beating Orpel so hard that he couldn't walk for days. Indeed, he replied to Celia with a growl. And that's why I despise him and don't want him to touch a single bite of my game. I get it. I don't even know him, and I already hate that guy's guts too. No, I don't hate him, Lith corrected her. Hate, just like love, is an irrational feeling, while my contempt for him has sound foundations. Wow! Such a profound notion for someone so young.
Worthy of a hunter.
Now enough chit-chat. It's time to get to work. Celia took down the squirrels, passing one to Lith. We will start with the little critters. They are smaller and better for practice. Even if you mess up, it's no big deal. There is not much meat in here. She placed a squirrel on a cutting board and prepared another for Lith. What I am going to teach you stands for most rodents. But, just in case, if you ever find a rabbit that still has a snow-white fur, bring it to me. It's valuable only until it starts turning brown for the spring. Even a tiny mistake can ruin the fur and lower its value. If you want me to teach you properly, let's do things my way. Choose the knife, do as I do, and follow my instructions. Celia handed him the short knife again. Lith nodded in approval. On the squirrel's back, pinch its hide and cut it near the base of the neck to expose at least half of it. Now use your index finger and middle finger on both hands to create an opening after you have made the cut. Use your fingers to hook up under the skin and pull one hand towards the rear and the other hand towards its head. During the process, Lith noticed that besides being disgusting, kinning a squirrel was like taking off a sticky wet glove. After that, Celia showed him how to remove the head, the legs, and the tail. I know it's a bummer, but that bushy tail is not fur. It's all goddamn body hair. You can still use it to stuff things. It's still very warm and soft. Now comes the tricky part. When you proceed to gut anything, be careful while making incisions. If you cut open the bladder or the intestines, the meat is ruined by bile or feces. There is no saving it. This stands for all the animals. Pay attention. Kid, gutting the squirrel was bloody and gruesome, but Lith could already smell the meat at the end of the tunnel, so he barely felt any discomfort. When they finished, Celia put both squirrels on a skewer to roast them in her fireplace. While we wait for our morning snack, I'll show you how to scald a bird for the plucking, as the name implies. Water must not be too hot nor cold. Just enough for you to immerse a finger without getting a burn, but unable to hold the finger in for more than a second without burning yourself. That's proper scalding temperature. Celia took a big cauldron. Positioning it over a campfire she had always ready on the back of her house. It can be a messy job, so it's better to do it outside whenever is possible. The smell of the meat cooking inside the house was making Lith's mouth water. He could not afford the risk of them burning. Joran, at his command. The cauldron became immediately filled with water. Lith then stuck his hand in the water, casting Infero, and making it emit steam. Celia whistled again in approval. Fast and efficient. I'm starting to regret this master-apprentice stuff less and less. I now understand why that old hag Neria called dibs on you. We should be ready to go. But first, Celia went inside and returned with 2 little plates of roasted squirrel. Before she could even pass his plate to him, Lith had already snatched the food, wolfing it down like there was no tomorrow. He sucked and gnawed until only bones were left. After licking every single one of his fingers, he returned to his previous calm and composed demeanor. Good gods. Such a gentleman. Celia's voice was oozing sarcasm. Would you like another serving? Because that seriously creeped me out, and I know a thing or two about. Her mockery fell on deaf ears. Lith's eyes could only see the second squirrel closing in. As soon as Celia pretended to offer him her share, his hands were already moving. After devouring the last squirrel, Lith noticed that Celia was frozen in place. Her mouth was open, but no words were coming out of it. The plate still near his face. He gently put the bones back into the plate. There was no need to hold the plate for me, but thanks. That was very kind of you. Chapter 10, Changes. After resolving the morning snack incident, Celia prepared the working table for the remaining game. The birds you caught are called blinkers because they get scared easily and are very quick to fly away. Usually, you need luck and skill to take them down from a distance. Whatever magic you performed, it made a clean kill. Aside from the broken neck, both the feathers and the body are unscathed. Lith accepted the compliment and gave her a small bow. It's just a matter of finesse in using air magic. Nothing special. Celia's curiosity was far from being satisfied. Ali. But she decided not to pry further. Scalding is easy and quick. You only need to throw the poultry in the cauldron for about 45 seconds. It's better to gently stir the water in the process to clean the birds from dirt and external parasites. It also helps to loosen most of the feathers. Never scald too long, or the meat could start to boil, not to mention the risk of rupturing the organs and ruining the meat. Lith took charge of the scalding process, waving his right hand to take control of the water in the cauldron. He stirred it and adjusted the force of the current, according to Celia's directions. Damn it, kid. You are really starting to make me regret to have never given a damn about magic. You don't know how to use magic. Lith was astonished. No, and before today, I was proud of it. I consider core magic a simple parlor trick. Why waste my time learning how to do things with magic when I get faster and better results by using my hands? Celia shrugged. Now get the blinkers out of the water. Time to get serious. Gutting poultry was really similar to his previous experience with the squirrel, but scalding and plucking replaced the skinning process, and there was the addition of having to remove the crop, neck, and oil gland. Once they finished, Lith's eyes enjoyed the results. He noticed that aside from the blinker's skin being a little more porous compared to a chicken's, it was just a roast away from what he could purchase back on Earth. How do I cook it? Still hungry, even after 2 squirrels? Yes, very. The previous meal was just an appetizer. He was far from satisfied. Please, let's use an outdoor campfire. I need to get used to not using a fireplace. Celia smacked her forehead with her hand. Right. I almost forgot about your family issues. After instructing him on how to choose the right spot for a campfire, she showed him how to improvise a kebab with wood sticks. The final lesson was about how high to set the kebab to avoid burning the food and how to recognize when it was ready to be eaten. After memorizing everything, Lith imbued his eyes with fire magic, activating the fire vision spell that granted him an improved version of thermal goggles. He then started to weave together fire and wind magic, keeping the heat around the blinker stable with no hot or cold spots, while using air currents to evenly cook every nook and cranny of the bird. Such fine control required him to move both his hands and feet, to watch his meal from different angles, and to adjust the mana flow. His movements were akin to a combination of martial arts, katas, Celia was about to mock him about how performing a victory dance for a single blinker was a little extreme. When the delicious smell reached her nose, the blinker was getting roasted with a speed visible to the naked eye. The skin turned into a crispy crust and released fat that was evenly spread over the meat. The smell was so good that, even though she had consumed her breakfast less than 2 hours ago, her stomach started to grumble. Lith removed the kebab from the fire with spirit magic and lowered the temperature of the roasted meat to avoid burning himself while eating. Then, he wolfed down the meat, ripping it apart with his bare hands. First, the drumsticks, then the breast, and lastly, the wings. It lacked salt, and the meat wasn't as tender as a roasted chicken, since they had not let the meat undergo any maturation. Nonetheless, it was the best meal that Lith had ever had. "I can't believe it! I'm not hungry anymore." Lith fell to his knees from happiness. His eyes became watery as if he was about to cry. But that moment passed quickly. "I need more. I can't allow the hunger to cripple me again," Lith thought while looking at the sun. There were still a couple of hours before noon, time that he could spend hunting. "Master Celia, I need a favor. I need a place to hide my own game, at least those that I'm not willing to share. Just call me Celia. Hunters do not waste time with honorifics. We are practical people." She waved her hand, dismissing the need for a title. "As for your request, I don't make favors. I cut deals. What about this? From tomorrow onwards, you will come here every day and clean my house. Maybe from time to time, you could cook something for me with that silly dance of yours. In exchange, I will keep your personal meat safe and sound. Plus, whenever I make you cook for me, we will share the meal evenly. Deal?" Celia offered him her hand. It was still a rip-off deal, but it was his only option. "Deal. I have only one rule. I don't do laundry." After a few days, Lith's house resounded with much more laughter and joy than usual. Him bringing game home had raised some questions, but nothing he couldn't explain easily. The food helped everyone to relax and to forget about past grievances. Even Lith and Orpal started to smooth over their relationship, limiting the glares and insults to a couple per day. But more importantly, Lith could finally start practicing martial arts again. His routine was very simple. He would hunt in the morning, practice magic in the afternoon, and martial arts at night. Thanks to the invigoration breathing technique, Lith was now able to stay up for almost a week before being forced to rest. He would sneak out of the house as soon as his life vision spell confirmed that everyone was asleep. Once outside, he would create mud dummies with earth magic to both practice martial techniques and temper his body. His first priority was footwork. Maybe it was because he was only 4 years old, or maybe it was the lack of activity due to his previous constant hunger. But his body was embarrassingly clumsy. Whenever someone threw anything at him, even a chestnut from a meter, 3 feet away, he would either miss it entirely or dunk it on the floor. Lith knew that even though his spellcasting was very quick, especially spirit magic, it was not instant. He could not afford to become a sitting duck as soon as someone closed in too much. Magic made him powerful, but not omnipotent. What good was it to be able to topple mountains if he was killed by a random thug who managed to sneak up on him? Even back on Earth, Lith had always thought that considering mind and body as separate entities was dumb. Exercise had always allowed him to relieve his stress and relax his mind, exactly like studying always allowed him to perform at his best, be it at work or martial arts. Brute strength was just violence, whereas pure intellect was just ideas, with no substance. Only when mind and body were trained together, the body could perform as the mind required. About a week after Lith had begun training, something happened. He was alone at night, practicing footwork by moving around the dummies, when he felt that something was wrong. Pain burst from his mana core and quickly spread to his whole body, accompanied by head-spinning nausea like he had never experienced before. "What's happening to me?" he thought. "This can't be a bottleneck. The last one resolved just yesterday, and no bottleneck ever felt like this." Soon he started gasping for air. He became incapable of standing up anymore and writhed in pain. "I can't die. I don't want to die again. Not after enduring so much. I refuse to become some slave in a distant galaxy or an old man waiting for death. I've had enough. I refuse to die." He used all his willpower to convert every iota of his mana into light magic, fighting the affliction that was tormenting him, but to no avail. The pain got worse and worse, until his power became incapable of keeping up. When Lith surrendered, the burning sensation was finally free to rise all the way up to his throat. Lith started to puke lumps of a black, Sticky substance that looked like tar but smelled like something that had died and rotted for weeks under the summer heat. They were the size of a nut. But the strain he felt was akin to have bathed two elephants walking side by side. The stench was so bad that even in his incapacitated state, Lith found the strength to summon some darkness magic to destroy them without leaving traces. Lith spent the next minutes spitting, drinking, and even eating grass to get rid of the revolting taste in his mouth. When everything returned normal, Lith was too exhausted to practice, so he had to use invigoration to return his body to its peak condition. As soon as Lith started performing the breathing technique, he discovered that he was now able to sense his mana core with much greater clarity. While absorbing the world energy with invigoration, he could feel and manipulate the mana flowing through his blood vessels and his organs to the point of visualizing even the residual magic in his body hair. Despite his eyes being closed, shut, Lith could see inside his own body, as if he were observing a state-of-the-art, full-body 3D scan. Even though he felt still dizzy, he tried to perform the footwork exercise again. Lith's movements were still far from perfect, but he no longer felt like he had two left feet. It's an amazing improvement considering that until a minute ago, my goal was to stop tripping on my own feet. I wonder. Lith extended forward, his opened right hand, applying spirit magic to the head of the dummies. Just an hour ago, if I tried to attack this many targets at once, the best I could do was to squeeze them a little. What about now? He clenched his fist, faster and harder than ever before. The dummies' heads popped like balloons.